Baki, you are truly a one-of-a-kind experience. I never thought that I would see so many scenes that are so different and so unrelated within the same span of episodes. This show really has zero rhyme or reason, and I'm loving it, bro. I appreciate y'all for showing love on the last one. I got a ton of comments saying that I've got to review the OG Baki first, Baki the Grappler, but I can't just start this one and not find out what happens next. So I'm gonna finish this one first, and let me know if y'all want to see the OG series. But that's enough of the yapping. Let's pick up exactly where we left off in Baki. Really quickly, we actually just hit 100,000. Crazy number. I appreciate all of y'all for watching the vids, subscribing for as long as y'all have. It's been over a year since we started this channel, which is crazy to think about. I made a community post talking a little bit more about it. I'm gonna make a video on my second channel talking a little bit more about it. If y'all wanna go subscribe over there, it's the abandoned gaming channel, but it's gonna come back to life soon, trust me. But yeah, 100,000. Check it off the list. Next up, 100 billion. We just start off with a scene of Baki in class. He starts getting chewed out by his teacher as dude's just going on and on as everybody is looking back. He's telling Baki that he's gotta lock in on his brain power. Regardless of how fast he is, no matter how strong he is, the world doesn't run on muscle power. But Baki says he does know of a few people who could defeat beasts, but the teacher says, I ain't never heard of no humans that could defeat beasts. He's going on and on about how there's limitations to the human body, and no matter how fast you run, you can't jump up from the bottom floor of a building to the top floor. It just don't make sense. Even the other students are starting to get fed up with him just talking this crazy. It was amused at first, but now they like, all right, chill, bro. We get it. I don't even know why he was going this crazy on Baki. He really didn't do anything. He was just not paying attention in class. I don't know. That ain't no reason to choose somebody out, but that's just my take, bro. But as he's just going on and on, out of nowhere, we see one of the beasts walk up and do that exact same thing that the teacher was just going on about. He jumps from the floor outside through the window. Obviously, everybody's scared out their mind, but him and Baki are just having a stare down. The teacher tries walking up, telling him not to disrupt class like this, but he just backhands the hell out this man, sending him across the room. But out of nowhere, Baki starts crying and apologizing. But we been seeing Dorian use this technique. It's just a surprise tactic as he kicks his desk straight into this man's chin. They both land, squaring up to fight, as we just see Doyle bleeding from his nose. And seeing this, he's impressed with Baki knowing the difference between a real fight versus one of those fights he's used to in the arena. He takes this little protractor type thing with this little blade on it. I ain't never seen this. I don't know if it's a multi-tool. I don't know. I don't know why they got this in school. I ain't never used that. But he got this little protractor looking thing saying that no matter where you look, there's suitable weapons everywhere, even in a place like this. But before they throw down, Baki just walks up to the window, smiles at him, and jumps out. For some reason, that's the last thing that we see of Doyle. He don't pop back up. He don't go after Baki. I don't know what happens. But in the meantime, Baki can't believe that Doyle really came to his school. He's worried that people are gonna find out his true identity. I mean, he already did jump kick a desk into this man's face right in front of everybody in the class. You know rumors about to spread. They probably got cameras in the whatever. Yeah. As he's walking around the outside of the school, he passes by this gardener as he thanks him for his work. The gardener appreciates it, but 2 seconds later, as Baki's walking on, the gardener throws this scythe at him. This is another one of the beasts, Yanagi. 2 of these beasts already pulled up on him in the span of like 30 seconds, bruh. I'd be sick. But Yanagi just pulls out these 2 scythes attached to this rope, starting to swing them around as Baki is startled. But Yanagi is saying, come on, you're not gonna say this is unfair, are you? With him using these weapons and Baki being weaponless. Just trying to look at the scythes swinging around, Baki can't even see the tip of the blade. He knows that they gotta be there somewhere, but it's just moving too fast for him to see. But even though they're moving too fast for his eyes to perceive, Baki is able to dodge both of Yanagi's attacks. They both know that the only reason that Baki was able to dodge was because the weapon is attached to strings. You can predict where the scythe is going to be based on the movements of the user. Since it's attached to a string, the body got to move first and then the scythe follows. He tosses Baki his scythe. locking in on his other one as he starts spinning it even faster. He starts this barrage on Baki as he slices Baki's weapon in half right after he just gave it to him. That's crazy. But he slices Baki's weapon as he's just continuing to push on and on. He goes for the kill, but Baki dodges by leaving his shirt behind, just barely escaping death. But Baki notices somebody in the background as he just says, "Oh, Yanagi," and tosses him a kettle of boiling water. Instantly, Yanagi is like, "Ain't no way." Getting flashbacks to him doing the same exact thing just the other day to Shibukawa. But as he catches it, Shibukawa starts dying at the fact that he thought it was really boiling water. He had him acting all scared and all types of stuff. He's just laughing in his man's face. Out of anger, Yanagi tries to attack him, but Shibukawa is too fast. He turns it around, smashing his head into the ground as he tells Yanagi that surely he's going after the wrong guy. Why is Yanagi going after Baki when Shibukawa is here himself? We then cut to this random monologue about this dentist and his research findings. Random, I know, but walk with me, it's Baki. But he's explaining that you can tell the strength of somebody based on their bite and their molars, probably because there seems to be a direct correlation between overall strength and the condition of your molars. The stronger you are, generally you grind your molars down, as he pulls out this case file of this prisoner as his molars are completely worn out. He wonders what kind of lifestyle one would have to live in order to achieve something like this, knowing that this entire prisoner's life must have been dedicated to training. Back to real time, and we see that this bite belongs to Yanagi. Yanagi attacks Shibukawa, causing him to bleed, but Baki doesn't even know what just happened. From his angle, it looked like Shibukawa dodged it in time, but Shibukawa just tells Yanagi that he's shameless for bringing hidden weapons into a place of learning. We see that Yanagi had this little blade in his hands as Shibukawa just tells him, "You're real bold, aren't you? You're over here challenging me to a fight when there's two of us." Baki instantly gets the deal, looking up, saying, "What? You're not gonna say this is unfair, are you?" Flipping the script with what Yanagi had just told him. I know he's hot. As Yanagi starts getting ready for battle, taking off his little disguise that he had, Shibukawa attacks him and they start jumping the mess out this man. Eventually, Shibukawa gets him in this full Nelson, telling Baki to attack, but before he got the chance to, Yanagi kicks the mess out of him and ends up making some space from Shibukawa. Shibukawa tells Baki a little bit of Yanagi's backstory, saying that his specialty isn't in these strange weapons that he's using. He's known as Yanagi the Poisoner. His main technique is called the Way of the Void. Yanagi just starts walking up, asking if he knows what the most poisonous gas in the world is. We of course saw him tell this to the prison guards in the last video, as he explains that the most toxic gas is oxygen. Just walking up, Baki is surprised that this is his fighting stance. He can tell that he's ready to attack, but also he's seemingly relaxed and off guard. He doesn't know what's going on. Yanagi is just going on about the symptoms of different types of toxic gases, as Baki is just mesmerized. Yanagi finishes up by saying that all of these symptoms lead to death, as he puts his hand up to Baki's mouth, and we cut over to a view of this hospital, seeing this behemoth being checked out by this doctor. This dude is huge. They had to put together 3 regular beds in order for him to lay down, as one of the doctors is explaining that he was taken out by one of his fellow inmates who was less than a third of his size. The doctor can't believe that somebody like this actually lost in a fight. Suddenly, they see this little fly flying around, and as the doctor claps his hands to kill it, just hearing that noise, the patient is getting flashbacks to what Yanagi did to him, where he put his hand up to his mouth, as just the thought of it is causing him to struggle and pull out all of these rails of the bed just to get into this little fetal position, covering the back of his head and just trembling out of fear. Yanagi got this man so messed up using his Way of the Void technique, as we see the same thing happen to Baki. After doing that little clap to his mouth, Baki just falls to the ground, and Shibukawa can't believe that a technique like this actually exists. Yanagi's going on about the finer details of how he's able to make this happen by changing the concentration of the oxygen in the air that you're breathing, causing the brain to lose all type of function in one breath. He explains that the training he went under allowed him to learn how to create this poisonous gas with just his hand. Shibukawa is just stunned, but before they truly get to face off, the cops pull up and Yanagi just makes his leave, jumping off of Baki on his way out. As he regains consciousness, barely even knowing what happened, Shibukawa walks up, telling him that he's lost. Fast forward to not too long after, and Tokugawa has all 5 of his top fighters there in the room. He can't believe that both Baki and Shibukawa lost at the hands of Yanagi, and they were both there at the same time. It was a 2-on-1. He's just going on about them being professional underground combat fighters. They should be able to thrive in any situation, but somehow they lost when the odds were in their favor. He's going on and on and on until eventually Hanayama just grabs him by his collar, telling him that they're all very aware of this, so what's the point in saying this? But Tokugawa bops him in the nose, telling Hanayama to unhand him, as he starts crying, saying that he is the most upset by this. He has pride in the underground combat arena and all of its fighters. He doesn't want them to lose to anybody. In the middle of his rant, Baki just gets up and leaves, apologizing to him. But as he opens the door, Dorian is right there waiting for him. He's got a bucket with him, as he says it's convenient that everybody's here in one place. Dorian went through all of the guards outside in order to make it into Tokugawa's house, as he lights this match, asking them if they like gasoline. But from behind him, we see Katsumi, the same guy who he destroyed at the gym the other day. Now, I ain't give him his name because I didn't know he was going to be relevant at the time, but he kicks the bucket all over Dorian, asking him how much he likes gasoline. Dorian starts backing up, but Katsumi sweep kicks him, getting on top of him, as Dorian says he's like a completely different person right now. Katsumi just says, honestly, he owes Dorian. He taught him the difference between a match and a real fight. But instead of lighting the fire, he walks off, saying that he'd no longer be a karate fighter if he did that. That's not karate. But he says he doesn't care if he's not a karate fighter, tossing the lit lighter at him, as Dorian just goes up in flames. He's just sitting there on fire, as Katsumi asks Doppo if he's wrong for what he did, but Doppo says he's not. Warriors shouldn't worry about how graceful they are when winning. They just gotta win. If you lose, then there's nothing to talk about. But he also says that there is something that's important as a fighter, the sense of beauty. He's referring to the act of coming into a fight empty-handed. Karate fighters constantly train in order to turn their hands into their greatest weapon. So coming in with a weapon isn't necessarily a disgrace to the fight, but a disgrace to yourself and your training and your pride. They just start wondering what they should do with Dorian, since he's literally cooked. But Retsu, looking at him, realizes that he's not done. He tries to finish the job, but Dorian dodges as he exhales all type of smoke that was backed up in his lungs. He rips off his clothes, wondering who's gonna be his next opponent. He's not even worried about Katsumi. He's asking if it's gonna be Retsu or Doppo. Doppo immediately steps up to bat, saying that he has got a debt to repay. But Katsumi steps in, saying that before they get into it, his master wanted a hand at Dorian as well. From the background, we see a man stepping up, Kato. He's talking with Doppo, wondering what happened to his hands. But as soon as he starts to explain, Kato surprise attacks Dorian with a kick to the gut. He follows up with another hit to Dorian straight in his nose. Kato's going on about how Dorian really messed up by chopping off Doppo's hand. Dorian tries to retaliate with the kick, but Kato easily dodges it, asking him if he even feels any type of remorse. He's like, if you're not gonna listen, then you don't need this, as he slices Dorian's ear off with this hidden weapon that he had in hand. Doppo can't believe that he's resorted to this, but Kato doesn't care. Katsumi is saying that Kato's unhindered by any types of pride or ego. His way of thinking is more in line with Shinshin Kai, which is, if I'm understanding correctly, their style of karate. But he says Katsumi is more in line with Shinshin Kai than Doppo is. Doppo just looks down, saying that this will be a good learning opportunity for the both of them. He just says the Shinshin Kai fighting style is more like this, as he kicks Dorian, and they can't believe that Doppo just attacked an opponent who was already defeated. But of course, Dorian wasn't done. He had already tied his titanium wire around Katsumi and Kato without them even realizing it, as he tries to finish the job, but Doppo slices through it with his hand. Remember, this titanium wire is supposed to be the pinnacle of scientific evolution up to that moment. Dorian was going on and on about it last episode, but once again, Doppo explains that your hands are your weapons. You go through this gruesome training until your hand is your blade. He just looks over at Kato and Katsumi, saying that one day they won't need to be hindered by such weapons. At this point, Dorian starts tweaking, bruh. But out of his mouth pops out a grenade as he pulls the pin in a last ditch effort as the explosion goes off, and we just see the police pull up afterwards. The grenade didn't do any significant damage, it just served as a distraction for Dorian to escape as everybody, including Mr. Tokugawa, managed to make it out safely. We get a view of Dorian just walking around with this blanket wrapped around him as he goes into this alleyway leading down into the sewer right into his base of operations. He's patching up his wound from his ear that was just chopped off, but as he looks up, he sees Kato, who was following him. Dorian's just like, oh, it's you. Just taking a swig of his drink, saying that it'll be impossible for Kato to bless him with the taste of defeat. Dorian's explaining the backstory to this place, saying that he used it 50 years ago back in the war. Kato pretends to show his respect as he just kicks him in the chest, or at least tries to. Dorian pulls up right beside him, attacking him, sending him flying across the room. He just proceeds to smash these bottles on the ground, dipping his hand into grease. He moves his hand around these glass shards to create these spikes around his fist, explaining that before, at the Tokugawa house, he had purposefully disguised his abilities so that when he does taste defeat, it's just that much sweeter, knowing that he already got his opponents off guard but would still lose. He tells Kato to do the same thing that he did with his fists so that they could be on even playing grounds, but Kato has his own plan. He kicks his barrel towards him, but Dorian almost shatters it, sending it back. He tries to go in for a kick, but the shards on his hand cut the bottom of Kato's feet. He uses his foot to fling blood into Dorian's eyes, but he responds by sending some of the shards into Kato's eye, following up with a punch. Kato is just getting whooped on as he goes into this inner monologue, saying that even though he's getting his ass whooped, it's almost as if this is exactly what he wanted. He just stands up, taking off his jacket, ready to go. He goes in for a kick, but Dorian easily dodges it as he tries to poke his eyes out, but Dorian tilts his head down, crushing Kato's fingers with just the strength of his forehead. We see that with every attack he's trying, he's getting countered, and once Dorian does go into offense, it just progressively gets worse. Dorian throws a broken bottle towards Kato as a distraction, blowing one of his nose hairs directly into his eyes as we can just see the power difference between the two of them. It's not even a question. Then Dorian, out of nowhere, bursts out into song. Kato tries to get back to his feet, but Dorian starts putting the hands on this man while continuing to sing the entire time. Kato, recovering from damage, just looks up at Dorian, saying that he was never praised for anything growing up. But finally, the one thing he did manage to get praised for was his karate, as he picks up these bottles, saying that Doppo says karate is when you have nothing in your hand. To him, karate is a way of life, but for Kato, karate is a tool. He smashes these bottles, swinging them into his face as he takes even more of them, smashing them directly onto Dorian as he just continues to throw these punches, but Dorian tells him it's impossible for him to win. Kato genuinely starts dominating this man to the point where even he's surprised. He knows how tough Dorian is, but out of nowhere, Dorian starts to beg for forgiveness, but Kato isn't showing any mercy. He just sticks his fingers into his eyes as he yells out his battle cry. But then we just see another clap. Kato has no clue what's going on, but that makes sense because he was hypnotized. Because Kato was so locked in on him wanting to win, he easily fell into Dorian's trap. All of that fight scene that we saw was merely just a figment of his imagination. After Dorian explained what really happened, Kato just says, that's real nice of you. Well, let's turn that dream into a reality. When he pulls out that same weapon that he had used back at Mr. Tokugawa's house, but Dorian kicks him up across the jaw as he sends his titanium wire around Kato's hand, but instead of chopping it off like he did with Doppo, he brings it back so that Kato slices his own neck with the weapon that he brought. The next thing we see is over at the Shinshinkai headquarters, where Retsu is doing some training. He's about to go up to the heavy bag, but as he notices something about it, he puts his finger up, slicing through the bag, and stuffed inside of it was Kato. Instantly, he rushes him to the hospital. We then get to see, back at the Shinshinkai headquarters, Katsumi is reading off a list of all of Kato's injuries. He goes on for like 2 or 3 minutes, all different type of stuff all across his body, and that was only half of the list. He's saying all of this with everybody in attendance to explain that this is war. Later that night, we just see a man eating at a restaurant as his waiter asks him if he enjoyed the food. The customer says he enjoyed it, as the waiter says, "You should enjoy it as much as possible while you can, Mr. Dorian." And as he looks up, we see that it's Dorian in a disguise. The waiter explains that Kato was one of his juniors. Dorian has made an enemy of the Shinshinkai style of karate, with its thousands of members all across Japan. A little disguise like this isn't gonna save him from anything. Dorian just gets up and walks out, as he's met by a group of people waiting for him, but he walks straight through, calling a cab. As it pulls up, he asks the driver to take him to Shinjuku, as the driver says, "Sure thing, Mr. Dorian." We see that the Shinshinkai members are literally everywhere. Dorian pulls out his titanium wire, confirming if the driver is with the Shinshinkai as well, as he agrees that he is, alongside everybody around him. And as Dorian looks out, he sees all these cars and vans and trucks and police cars, ambulances. Everybody is with the Shinshinkai, here to seek revenge for Kato. Dorian just puts his wire back, as the driver says that was probably a wise decision. There's no amount of tricks or maneuvers that you could pull to get through all of these people here. Dorian just asks where he's heading, but the driver just tells him to be patient. You'll see soon enough. As he gets dropped off, he just sees hundreds of Shinshinkai members there, as he notices he's here at an amusement park. Obviously, they want him to go in, but that was all they're instructed to do, so they don't know what's waiting inside for him. But figuring that somebody strong must be in there, Dorian says this is exactly where he wanted to go, so they did him a favor by dropping him off here. Dorian reiterates the fact that all of these people came to meet him and escort him here. Some people while still working on their shifts, some people here on their day offs. Clearly, they put a lot of effort, and Dorian says he wants to thank them by challenging them to a kumite. One quick Google search told me that a kumite is basically a spar in which they practice technique and form between two fighters, and Dorian even agrees to do it with the Shinshinkai rules as his way of showing respect. The other dude starts off by going crazy, but Dorian blocks each and every one of them, responding with a kick to the jaw, as everybody sees Dorian is on a completely different level. It doesn't matter how many of them they have, there's no way in hell that they could get the better of him. He just wanted to make that point loud and clear. As he walks into the amusement park, it's seemingly empty. It's nighttime, so there's no regular customers around, until eventually he sees this clown. This clown just turns all the lights on as he takes him by the hand, and they begin walking while holding hands, as Dorian starts going on all of these different amusement park rides. He's on the little unicorn rides, having a blast. He's going to the teacups, having even more of a blast. But out of nowhere, somebody appears right in front of him, attacking. But of course, Dorian was ready for it. You know how insane that would be if this man Dorian got taken out because he was too distracted having fun on this little funk booty teacup ride. That'd be insane. But we see this big body dude, of course, from the Shinshinkai. He is the 3rd rank Atsushi Suedo. He's here to seek revenge on Kato, saying that he doesn't care if he dies today. He rushes in for an attack as Dorian just barely blocks it, responding with an attack of his own. Suedo is already bleeding from the nose, but he just asks Dorian if this is all he's got. He kicks him in the shin, following up with a punch, but Dorian just starts running. They're dashing all around this amusement park as Suedo doesn't know what he's doing, but he's not going to let him escape. He ends up following them all the way to this roller coaster where eventually they both get on. Suedo says that Dorian could never escape him, but Dorian just recalls back to what Suedo said earlier. Quote unquote, "I don't care if I die today. Dorian says now he's gonna test Suedo's resolve. They slowly begin to climb up to the peak of the roller coaster as he points out that if Suedo falls, he dies. That's just the simple reality. Caring for a friend, a brother, if you will, is a natural human emotion, but Dorian wants to test how far that emotion really goes. He says once the roller coaster starts picking up speed, they're gonna fight while standing here. And as they reach the top, Suedo says he's ready. But as soon as he gets over the hump, Dorian is gone. He reappears right behind him, putting him in this chokehold, but they manage to split apart. Dorian is just amused, saying that it looks like Suedo is giving it all just to stay standing. But in Suedo's head, he knows that he has the advantage. He's pretending to not be able to handle it, but as Dorian throws this punch, instead of Suedo taking the damage, Dorian is the one who falls over. We get a flashback to Suedo's training, learning from Doppo the Sanchin stance. A stance that originally was created back in the old era where they used to fight on boats. It provides extremely strong balance while fighting, which was crucial back in the day when they would be out at sea. Remembering that, Suedo begins to block all of Dorian's punches as he responds with the straight to Dorian's noggin as he just smiles. Dorian just says, once again, quote unquote, "I don't care if I die today," asking Suedo if that's really what he said. Suedo couldn't hear him because of how loud everything is, but Dorian just rushes him, tackling him off of the roller coaster as he says once again, right there in his face, "I don't care if I die today," right? They're just falling down as Suedo is thinking that this man is insane. He manages to turn him around in the air before they hit the ground, but once they land, we just see blood flying all around. Somehow, Dorian manages to get back up, asking if Suedo is still even conscious. He's explaining that he didn't survive that fall because he's got some abnormally strong body, but instead because of his tactics. While Suedo made direct contact with the ground, Dorian used this trusty wire to reduce the impact by pulling on this light pole right before they landed. He just starts laughing as Suedo's eyes just close. All of a sudden, Katsumi pulls up with Doppo and Retsu behind him. Katsumi calls him a scummy piece of trash, but Dorian isn't affected by what he says. He just asks Retsu if he feels the same way. It was a bit confusing, but as soon as he said this, Retsu just closes his eyes as we get a flashback to his training days. In this flashback, we see a handful of people taking this test, all students of Shinshinkai. These 10 students were granted permission from the Zen master to take the test, but ultimately none of them passed. The test was to hit one side of this, the extra long bathtub, and if the wave reached the other side, then you pass. The Zen master's upset, explaining that the thing stopping them is their state of mind. If they only think they could reach 30% of the bathtub, then they'll only reach 30%. The Zen master walks up, locks in, and punches it, but there are no waves. But shortly after, they see a delayed waveform start to spawn, as from the other side, another student pulls up, hitting the tub from the opposite side, causing the two waves to crash into each other. We see that this big body bald dude who just went head to head with the Zen master is Retsu. He's upset because the Zen master didn't allow him to take the test when he knows that he's fully qualified. He wants to know why he wasn't given the same chance as these other students, as the Zen master just takes him to the secret part of the temple that Retsu didn't even know existed. He just tells Retsu that the reason he's standing in his way from taking that next step is behind these doors, and as they walk through, they see a giant hole in the wall. This hole was made 40 years ago from a man using only his fists in one night. We get some context about the word Dagen, explaining that it's a form of training that only uses your hands and legs to turn a large boulder into a perfect sphere. We get a flashback inside of the flashback to an even younger Retsu being shown around the temple as the Zen master shows him the room of Dagens. Retsu was just amazed that all of these were made by human hands, but he sees that one podium is empty, as the Zen master says this one is too big to display inside of the room. And going back to real time, or I guess going back to the first flashback, this was the Dagen that belonged on that empty podium. The Zen master tells Retsu that the reason he can't take that next step isn't because of his attitude, it's because he's not skilled enough. Retsu can't believe that a man made this, wondering who it is, as the Zen master explains that it was a Westerner. And go back to real time, we see that Dorian was that man. Retsu just walks up, putting his hands together, telling Dorian that it's an honor to meet him. As Dorian says he heard about a prodigy, Retsu, just a few years after he left the temple, but never thought that he would run into him in Japan. He asks Retsu if he wants to fight, but Retsu says as a fellow practitioners of Kung Fu, they're forbidden to fight amongst each other. Katsumi steps up, saying that he'll just have to be the one to fight Dorian, but Doppo interrupts, saying, nah, I'ma take this fight. After all, I need to get my revenge. Doppo just starts taking off his clothes, saying that real fights should be fought shirtless. As he undresses, I thought he was gonna be butt booty naked for a second, but he's got these little red shorts on, as they recognize the outfit as the Tiger Killer outfit. Doppo explains that 20 years ago, he fought with the Siberian tiger and got the best of him. Retsu, hearing this story, thought that it was only a myth, a legend, but Doppo confirms it as the truth. He rushes in, starting to throw hands with Dorian, breaking his cast, saying that this is payback, punching Dorian with his once severed fist. He was able to get his fist reattached after Dorian sliced it off with his wire by taking it to his special doctor. He went through the whole procedure, as Doppo didn't even get any anesthesia, but he was just sitting there straight faced as everything was reconnected. Going back to real time, Doppo just says he's back. Dorian takes off his shirt, agreeing to the fight, as Doppo rushes in with the left. As he's reeling from pain, we see this bottle come out of Dorian's mouth, but as it shatters on the ground, it's straight acid burning through the cement. Dorian just attacks, but Doppo blocks it, hitting him with a sweep kick, slamming his face into the ground, following up with a punch, but Dorian dodged it. At this point, it's looking like they're going head to head as equals, but before we see a continuation, we get a view of Baki with Kozue. They're having this little conversation, as Kozue is saying that recently they've been together all the time, as she feels like he might be getting tired of her. But Baki just says at this point he couldn't imagine not liking her anymore. They just stare into each other's eyes as they go into a kiss, and everybody being mad nosy. They're just watching along as they walk, but they hold this kiss for extra long to a point where she's out of breath afterwards. Baki apologizes, but she doesn't mind. Noticing the time, they just decide to go home. But as they're holding hands, walking off, we see somebody watching them. First, I thought somehow it was Spec being revived from the dead. You know how this show go. I feel like anything just happened. But instead, is somebody even more powerful, the most dangerous creature in the world, Baki's father. Back to the Dorian fight with Doppo, they're just going at it when suddenly they stop. And Dorian says he can tell that Doppo truly did devote everything to karate, but he also says that's the very same reason why Doppo could never beat him. Dorian just starts doing these little funky movements as Katsumi has no clue what's going on. Doppo just kicks up these two stones into his hands as he throws one at Katsumi, but he was able to react in time and smack it out of the way. He's wondering what kind of little test was that? There's no way Doppo thought that he wouldn't be able to deflect that, right? But as he throws one towards Dorian, it just disappears as he turns around and we see that same stone pulverized into dust. Dorian just blows the stone dust into Doppo's face as he goes on saying that nobody who truly devotes himself to karate could ever defeat him. But Doppo interrupts by pushing him up into the air, flipping him around and punching him like 10 feet back. But Dorian just starts begging for forgiveness. Doppo has already seen this before, calling him an unoriginal bastard. But Katsumi and Retsu, just looking at Doppo, is wondering what the hell he's doing. We see that Doppo got caught in Dorian's hypnosis. Doppo was just fighting this invisible enemy. As Dorian explains what's going on, Doppo is fighting a version of Dorian who he could easily defeat. Dorian just says it's almost cute seeing the almighty Doppo fight like this, but now it's time to end this little dream. Dorian attacks, but Doppo deflects it. He continues to kick Dorian in the stomach, following up with the uppercut as Katsumi and Retsu both realize that he's doing this all while still under the hypnosis. He's being hypnotized, but he knows that he's being hypnotized. Being as experienced of a battler as he is, Doppo knows that fights, by nature, are supposed to be inconvenient. A fight would never go so easily. He just stomps on Dorian's neck as Dorian tries to rush in, but Doppo counters him, once again doing all of this while still hypnotized. Retsu knows the cure as he claps, bringing Doppo back to reality just in time to use his rotation defense, deflecting whatever Dorian had just blew at him. They're impressed that Doppo is moving in the exact same way as when he was under the hypnosis, as Dorian begins to counterattack, slashing Doppo's eye patch off. He follows up with an attack, attempting to stab through Doppo's neck, but Doppo's fist breaks all of his fingers. Looking at it, Dorian's almost amazed, excited that Doppo could truly give him the gift of defeat. He's glad that he could pull out every single trick that he has and still face defeat, not having any thoughts that he could have won if he did something else, or he could have did this to win. He's fighting at his absolute best. Doppo catches this blade that Dorian had hidden in his shoe, flipping him around and sending him back. Dorian tries to attack once again, but Doppo kicks that same hand that he already messed up before. Doppo begins to repeatedly punch at Dorian's sternum until eventually it completely shatters, as he says this is the true power of a man who's devoted himself to the martial arts, something you could never achieve. He made the mistake of believing that martial arts had given its all to him, but he was gravely mistaken. He continues to just beat on Dorian, completely breaking him down as he just spits on him, saying that you must give all of yourself to the martial arts and only then will you receive this type of strength. Dorian is finally coming to the realization that he's gonna lose, as Doppo says it's time for the final blow. Dorian just starts trembling with every remaining nerve in his body. He feels nothing but fear. Doppo strikes, but stops right in front of his nose, saying that now it's his turn. As they turn around, they see Kato in a wheelchair with IVs going all through his body, and Dorian can't believe it. The doctor from the hospital pulls up, saying that you can't bring a patient in critical condition like this, he's gonna die. But as he's trying to chew Doppo out, Kato just stands up, making his way over to deliver this final blow. Nobody can believe it as Dorian begins to tremble once again. Kato begins to charge up, damn near going Super Saiyan, bro. But Dorian surrenders. He starts crying out of every orifice in his body, as just the threat of a true final punch was enough to finish the job. Over at the hospital, they're looking at the x-rays of Dorian as they realize that his only intact limb was his right arm. The doctor sees something in there as they zoom in and says that it looks like a detonator, almost like a final move out of desperation. But the other doctor just writes it off, saying that he's talking nonsense, they should just call it a day there. As we get a view over in Dorian's room, his bed is empty. But looking at Kato's room, Dorian is there standing over his bedside. He just says that Kato allowing him to stand here like this is a sign of weakness. He couldn't possibly pretend to beg for mercy like Dorian did in this sedated state. But Dorian doesn't even finish him off. He just opens the window and leaves. Back at Doppo's house, he's getting dropped off by his driver. He's excited to see what his wife's gonna say after seeing his left hand reattached. But as he walks up to the door, he notices something's off. He bursts through it, expecting to see somebody, but just sees everything torn up. He starts yelling his wife's name, not getting any response, but he just sees this wire case from Dorian on the ground. Engulfed in rage, he starts bursting through his clothes, yelling out Dorian's name, but before he could even finish it, Dorian popped up behind him, smacking that detonator in his right wrist onto Doppo's face as it explodes, and once again, he begins to sing. As we get a look at Doppo's face, and it's completely torn off. Elsewhere, we see Baki and Kozue once again having a moment. Both of them are too nervous to ask each other if they want to go up to each other's rooms. He's too nervous to ask her, and she's too nervous to ask him. They just kiss once again as Kozue runs off, heading home. They're neighbors, so she tells him to get home in 10 minutes so that her mom doesn't get too suspicious. Back over with Dorian, Retsu pulls up on him. Dorian just says he's happy to see him as he has a question. He wants to know, what is strength? Retsu explains that strength is the power to carry out your will, and putting two and two together, Dorian realizes that since his will is to taste defeat, he's only been proving himself as weak by attaining countless victories. He just starts laughing, realizing how truly tragic that is. He's laughing over and over and over as he looks up at Retsu, saying that he would like to defeat him. But Retsu says that's impossible. Dorian flings this bloody towel onto Retsu's face, going for an attack, but as Retsu responds with a punch, it slows down and we get a monologue of Dorian already knowing that he's been defeated. At this point, it's all over. We get a view of this ambulance being escorted by damn near every car in the whole police force. Of course, it's because Dorian's in the vehicle, but also Retsu is in there. The officers next to Dorian ask Retsu if Dorian wakes up, they're gonna be okay, right? Because Retsu's there. As Retsu just says, Dorian is no longer a threat. Y'all don't gotta worry about a thing. As Dorian gets up, the officers are instantly scared, but he just runs up to the window as we can see that his whole psyche has been turned into that of a child. He's talking about his dad and him wanting candy. He starts to get upset that he never gets any candy and all it is back and forth with just about his dad. That's literally all he's talking about. But Retsu just puts his hand on Dorian's shoulder, saying that he'll buy him as much candy as he wants. Finally, we get a scene of Baki just waiting for those 10 minutes to pass by so he could go home. Kozue walks into her house as she's greeted by her mother and she heads up to her room just thinking about her date with Baki. And after 10 minutes, Baki walks home as this whole time Kozue's mom was checking her watch knowing that Baki was going to come home after 10 minutes. They've pulled this stunt time and time again. She's already onto it. But as Baki gets home, he's hanging out with his dog, and over with Kozue, she just takes her hair down, looking at herself in the mirror, wondering if she should sneak out to Baki's room. Her heart is beating and she's just imagining Baki saying that he wanted to go to her room as well. In the midst of all these thoughts, she hears tapping on the window. She figures that it must be Baki, but when she opens the curtains, nobody's there. She opens the window to get a better look around, but she can't find him. Out of nowhere, she feels something. She instantly shuts her window and closes the blinds, feeling this chill. But hearing somebody behind her, she turns around and we see Sikorsky instantly grabbing her head and putting his hand to her mouth. He just promises her that her mom is safe, but if she makes so much as even a peep, he won't hesitate to kill the both of them. So it's in her best interest that she just stays quiet for a while. Damn. If it's one thing about this show, it just does a crazy job at piecing so much together. It's built this expectation of being so random that literally you could pull out anything and it just works because it's Baki. I'm hoping that in this next stretch of episodes, we get to see Baki put in some work because I'm trying to see what he could really do. He went out bad versus Yanagi earlier. I'm not trying to see that. Let me know if y'all want to see part 3. As y'all might have noticed, I'm trying to go crazy for the end of the year. I appreciate y'all for showing love. Make sure y'all like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm going to see y'all in the next one real soon. We out, bro. We out.